Welcome back to our show, Briggs on Books. It used to be a little regional California book show, but because of COVID, forced us into the Zoom technology. Now we talk to people all over the country, all over the world about their books, and we're always looking for different kinds of books and different kind of topics. And we stumble upon this fascinating guy, Lewis, who has written a book about wanting to open a theater. Like where people act and put on shows and sing and stuff. And he actually found a building. They constructed it and started producing shows. It's a fantastic story. Welcome, Lewis. Welcome to the show. Lewis
Hi,
Kempfer.
thank you.
And the book he wrote is 120 seats in a boiler room. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so my first book was a memoir, and this was originally going to be just a follow-up and just kind of do a deeper dive into the years that I was with theater. But then I realized it was a bigger story. It was bigger than me. So with three other business partners, we wanted to start a live, professional, mostly musical theater. And we were looking at spaces, and we looked at everything from retail storefronts to banks to the second level over an antique store. Nothing fit. And then at the factory at Franklin, so this was probably one of the first of the trends. This was 2001, where they would take these big and sprawling industrial complexes and turn them into retail, dining, entertainment destinations. You know, there's one in Anaheim, the Packing House. You know, I think every city probably has one now. But this was one of the first, and it was a working theater, a working factory built in the 20s. And then they made stoves, and then in the 80s they made mattresses, but then for about 20 years it just sat and it just decayed. Well, we looked at the boiler room building. It was actually the boiler room for the factory. It was a tall brick building. It had two antique boilers in it. They were sealed. They had asbestos in them. One of them got removed. One of them did not. But it was a disaster. It was pigeon droppings and homeless people's debris, to put it nicely, and but it had a lot of height. It had 40 feet up, and we walked away, and my partners were like, no, never. And I said, yeah. And then I got home that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I said, no, you know what, I've got a vision. And we went back and looked again, but we had to do quite a bit of cleanup. I mean, the owners of the factory did the basics, bringing it up to code as if it was going to be a retail space, which meant if you want to run, high voltage wattage, theatrical lighting, you're going to have to put in those panels yourself. You're going to pay for that. And so we had to do a lot. We spent a lot of money. It was about $100,000 in 2001 to open the doors.
Now, this is in Nashville, and, were you doing it because that's kind of the trend, or you were looking for a theater space?
So the four of us, the four business partners, we had been doing theater together for a couple of years with another theater company that we were involved with, trying to really get it off the ground. But the main guy just, he didn't want to do anything full-time year-round or anything. He just wanted to every once in a while do a show every couple of years, and you're not going to build an audience that way. You can't just pop in once in a while.
I think that's part of it, building a steady audience coming in. Now, by the way, tell us about the first year. What show did you start with? And you said that led to a beginning of subscriptions.
So I was also I was the managing director, and I was the marketing director. And while my business partners wanted to do only obscure, unknown, cutting edge shows. I said, and that's exactly how we're not going to make it through the first year. So we're going to have to give people what they want. Nashville at that time was extremely sports oriented. Now it's very different. There's just a ton of theaters, um, live theaters, that is. Uh, so I said, you guys are going to laugh. You're going to say no, but I want to put a chorus line in that space on a 16 by 28 stage. So 28 wide, 16 deep. It's not a very big stage.
Small, yeah.
But we were able to get 16 dancers wide. Chorus line usually calls for 18, but some dinner theaters have shrunk it to 16. And one here in Colorado, when I saw it, they had shrunk it by 2 people. I'm like, I know that we can do this. And when we put it in the initial season subscription package, it sold tickets. We made about $80,000. It was probably because of that show. My partners were like, I don't want to do South Pacific. I don't want to do Oklahoma. I'm like, I don't want to do those either. But we got to give people a name, show, something they recognize, something that's going to pay the bills, so that when you put your little obscure, cutting, avant-garde show in there, something is paying the rent.
Now, did you have to get permission to use fewer dancers?
No, you can't change lines or lyrics in a show. But there was kind of an alternate. I don't know if it was official or not, but a lot of smaller theater companies who would put on the show, there were 2 roles that were kind of expendable, and there was a way that you could reassign those lines to other
Now,
characters.
that had to be an expensive show to put on as your first show.
It was about $8,000 in rights for a 6-week run. That's a lot. That's a big chunk.
Yeah.
And then you're paying, you're paying 16. In that show, we were paying 16 performers plus 5 musicians. I directed and I played one of the roles. I played the director in the show, and I was the real director. So of course I wasn't paid. And we follow that model as best possible. Whenever we try to direct our own stuff and not have to pay a director. And we were all capable of doing that.
So starting out, you remodeled the building. You built a theater
inside what had been a boiler room for a working factory, built in the Depression era. At that time, the building was 80 some years old. And now it's 120 something years old. I think it was built in 1928. So coming up on 100 years. I don't know. I'm not good at math. That's why I did theater.
Is this for who's the book for? Theater nerds, historians?
I'd say maybe both of those. It's a very niche book, and I was told that going in, but I felt like it was a story that needed to be told. Now, this is not going to appeal to every actor out there, because you might just want to be in a show. You might have no interest in ever running your own theater. But there are probably people out there who want to start a theater, and then hopefully they'll find my book and give them some real world just the experience.
Yeah.
So I went into detail of the first 5 years of the theater.
Yeah. Show by show? Yeah.
Show by show, right. And then interspersed throughout the book, I had 12 contributing authors, people who had acted, directed, ran lights, whatever the case may be, that wrote chapters. And so they kind of helped fill in some of the gaps and made it a little bit more of a 360-degree view, not just me saying what we did, but other people saying, yeah, they did this and it was great, and this is how I was involved. And I mean, everybody said, no, you're never going to
Yeah.
pull that off.
Well, it sounds like it also could be an inspiration to those who have that same dream like you have. That yeah, it can be done.
I think so. At the end of throughout the book, I put in like real world. Uh, if you're written directly to the person who might want to be starting a theater, so not just our experience, but saying, here's what you need to know about rights and royalties to shows. Here's what you need to know about actor contracts. Here's what you need to know about working with renting a space. So somebody could pick this up, and there's humor, there's real experience, and there's concrete, information.
Yeah, and you probably mentioned the dreamers out there. You probably mentioned things in the book that are real life things that these dreamers would not think about if they decide they want to go and open their own theater.
I think maybe it might help people think outside the box of where a theater can be located. This was the most unlikely of spaces. And I gotta say that of all the challenges, the building itself was probably one of the biggest. The building, it was so old. I mean, the bricks were crumbling every night. We had to vacuum up crumblings from the bricks, but vines from outside were growing through where the grout was missing. It was like the plants were taking back the theater, which the second year we did Little Shop of Horrors, so that kind of worked.
Perfect.
We also had so we had flora and we had fauna. So we had birds that nested in the theater, and particularly on matinees, if we were running a little bit late, the birds would start throwing sticks down onto the stage, like saying, "Speed it up, hurry it up, hurry it up."
Yeah.
During the first show, I just got to say this one. During the very first show, which was "I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change," was just a 4-person show about dating and romance and all that. There was one song, and 2 little mice would come out and sit on the stage every single show. They'd listen to the song. When it was over, they scurried away. And that show ran for 10 weeks, and those mice did not miss a single show.
Tell me what year the theater opened.
2001.
And it lasted a long time, didn't it?
Well, it made it 14 years. So, that's, there are theaters out there who are celebrating their 50th anniversaries and stuff. It would have been great if we had not lost the lease, but the complex was sold, and the new owners had a different vision for the building. They wanted to keep it as a performance space, but not as theater. They wanted to bring in, being Nashville, they wanted to bring in new country artists and just do little showcases, which only required an even tinier stage. So it had a good run. I mean, there's a saying or a rule about restaurants and theaters, like if you can make it through your first 5 years, then you can probably make it quite a bit longer.
Well, this is a very inspirational story. It's a very real story, something that really happened. What was incredible is that you made it happen. Yeah. Obstacles that you probably had no idea, especially with the building and permits and city approvals, and it had to be a lot to overcome.
Oh, yeah.
But
on opening day was a nightmare, as opening days of business would normally be, but just about everything that could go wrong did. The phone company shut down our phones by accident as we were having radio spots playing saying, "Call now to get your tickets," and people were trying, and then the website went down and they couldn't buy tickets online. And my late mother, she was there. She'd been a secretary, and she flew out, and she was answering the phones for a while, and then she just ended up in tears. We all ended up in tears that opening day. We didn't get city approval until about 6 o'clock, and the show time was at 8, and it was a very the inspector was like, I really shouldn't be signing off, but we were pleading and saying it's not like we're opening a boutique where it doesn't matter if we're delayed a week. No, this is theater. People have bought tickets to be here tonight. We have to open the doors.
It's an incredible. I could talk to you for hours on this, Louis, because it's absolutely fascinating. Not only am I going to get the book, I'm going to get a couple and give them to a couple other people who've been through this kind of thing, or
yay, great,
or even worse, who think they want to do this and say, "Wake up! It's all right, do it, but read this book first, because there's things you probably didn't even think of."
Yeah, there might be people who are kind of pie in the sky thinking, "No, we're going to open a theater." Yeah, read this book. It's gonna show you some things. You know, we were transparent. Here's what we did wrong. Don't do this. You know, but here's some things that I think we did right.
Where do you go from here, Louis? Got another? Oh wait, you wrote a book before, is that right? Let's look at this for a second.
Well, yeah, my first book was a memoir, just of my life, spanning from childhood until in my 40s. Rather a dark book that it's not for everybody, but has done pretty well. It's called "Don't Mind Me, I'm Just Having a Bad Life," which is kind of a funny title because, you know, you hear people say, or I say it, don't mind me, I'm just having a bad day, or don't mind me, I'm just having a bad week, you know. And I'm like, don't mind me, I'm just having a bad life, you know.
Very good.
From abusive fathers to, you know, just dark. You know, if somebody's looking for something that's dark but then turns inspirational, you know.
But you've had a lot of exciting things, from you know, being in you know, opening a theater to producing shows for Disney, I think, and ending up in Colorado.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I never really imagined owning a theater or really, you know, directing or eventually designing sets. And it was my design work well, I pitched myself to Disney, and everybody said they'll never respond. Well, they actually did respond. And the next thing you know, I was moving to California. I got hired in off the street as a production manager for entertainment at Disneyland. And after about 8 years, I started producing big events and smaller shows. And it was incredible and magical. And I still, you know, being back where I grew up, it's like, did any of that even happen? You know,
was it a one long dream, perhaps?
Right, exactly.
Louis, tell our viewers where to get the book.
This book is exclusively on Amazon right now, because I'm self-published, or the term we're trying to get to be in vogue, indie, like, you know, an indie recording artist. But yeah, it's cooler, hip, cutting edge, groovy, whatever, you know, indie publisher. So, you know, I hire the editor, I hire the designers, I do whatever I can myself to save money. But ultimately, there aren't a lot of bookstores left anymore. You got Barnes and Noble, you got the small section in Target, you've got some independent stores, but they're all very limited on space.
Yeah.
The big, you know, Barnes and Noble, they're not going to touch you unless you are published by a major New York publisher. So it's all on me to promote it and try to sell it, and this one's a tough sell.
Well, Louis, it sounds like that's how you do stuff. You get it done, build a theater, get a book out there. You know what you need to do, you get done. You've had an exciting life. So, last thoughts for our viewers.
Well, I've got a third book coming out this summer, and it's a shorter book, and it's called Basic Training for the self-publishing battlefields. And so it's written from the perspective of an Army drill sergeant saying, all right, new recruits, this is what you've got to do. You want to self-publish a book? This is not going to be easy, you know, but here's how to do it.
I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of authors we've talked to who are just at the point where, whew, I finished writing it, and they have no idea where to go after this. So,
I'm hoping. And there's a lot of books out there on Amazon that they get really, really detailed about. Here's how to publish on Amazon. Here's how to, you know, I just wanted something that was an aerial view from beginning to end. I wrote my book. Now what do I do? And it's, you know, all right, you know, soldiers. Just because you wrote a book, it doesn't mean that, you know, you're ready to publish. Have you had it edited? Is it laid out? Is it digital? Is it designed? You know, and going through the process and just keeping that military motif, and kind of adds a little bit of fun, I think.
Louis,
that'll be out.
I can talk to you for hours, but I want to talk to you about that book, so we'll have you back. Our guest is author Louis Kempfer, author of 120 Seats in a Boiler Room. Fascinating to me, anyway, and I hope a lot of people find it fascinating. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it.
We'll
Thanks
be
for
back
time.
with more Briggs on Books right after this.